Spotlight Series focuses on people and programs making a difference in their communities across Montana. These are in-depth conversations about recovery and human connection. Join us in this intimate journey as we bring stories of recovery to life.
Hi, I'm Jim Haney, Executive Director of Montana's Peer Network, and I want to welcome you to another podcast, this being our special Spotlight series. And in this podcast, I'm here today sitting down with Don Roberts from Ronan. Don, welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jim.
This is a new series that we're rolling out here in 2018, and really excited to talk with you, Don, really, because I feel like we haven't really talked. I know we've emailed quite a bit, but since you went through training, the PS 101, it's been a while, and so it's nice to actually get to talk to you and chit chat, and it's nice to be able to do that with you.
Same with you.
I think from the training and our conversations, and then through our emails, I think the best place for us to start and let people get to know you is by starting to talk about the Never Alone Drop-In Center in Ronan. So tell us first off what this is and where this is.
Okay, the Never Alone Recovery Hall is what we named it. And it's located at 309B Main Street in Ronan. And we're open 7 nights a week from 6 to 8. There's some differences. It's from 5 to 8 on Fridays because we're doing a couple of different things, and from 8 to 10 on Saturdays. Or excuse me, I got that backwards. 8 to 10 on Saturdays, and 5 to 8 on. I did get that backwards. Sorry.
It's okay.
Start over again.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
So on Fridays, we have a Red Road to Recovery group, and it meets from 8 to 10. We do a meeting, and then we do some powwow drumming after that. And so on Saturdays, we have a step study group that meets there at 5, and then a regular group that meets there at 6. So it's open different hours. The rest of the week is open from 6 to 8 every night.
Very nice. And how did you come up with the groups? Which groups you were going to do?
I talked to people. I asked them people what they wanted to do. I put a whiteboard up on the wall, and people wrote down some stuff they were interested in. I wrote down some stuff I was interested in. It turns out we've been doing this since the very beginning of October. So in the last 5 months, we've kind of learned that people respond more, show up more when there's an actual group going on than just like open doors.
Right. Right.
So we kept Sunday as just open doors. So we're in there doing arts and crafts, and there's a bunch of supplies in there, and listening to music and playing cards and that kind of thing. And some people show up to that. But generally during the week, if we just have those open nights, people don't show up.
Interesting.
So we set up groups. Monday is a women's group, women only. And the women just love that. And it's got all the groups except for we have a Narcotics Anonymous group on Wednesdays. And it's around 20 people, regular people that show up. All the other groups are somewhere, depending on the night, between 5 and 9 people. The women's group is probably the second biggest after the NA one. And then Tuesday night, we do a Smart Recovery meeting, which
nice.
People wanted something outside of a 12-step program, an alternative.
Right.
So me and one other person went and got our facilitator training in Smart, and we started that Smart meeting. Thursday night or Wednesday, we have that NA. Thursday night, we have our early recovery skills group for, people new to recovery to just come in, and we just share early recovery skills with them. and I'm gonna start doing a little bit of. I got my rap facilitator training too, so we're gonna start doing a little bit of rap stuff in there.
Nice.
Then Friday night we do the Red Road meeting and the drumming, and Saturday night is changing right now. I think we're gonna take one group out and we're gonna replace it with the mental health support group.
Okay.
For people, because there's a lot of people that have co-occurring stuff going on, and this will give them a platform to talk about that kind of stuff in their lives. And then we're going to leave Sunday night alone, because there are a group of people that really like just coming in and hanging out and playing games, and they want to keep that night. So that's kind of our schedule. At some point, someday, I'd like to have open doors all the time. I know a lot of people in the groups have come to me and say, "Hey, man, this is really changing my life." This opportunity to have a safe place to be, because a lot of people still live in places where people are still using, and they just need to be somewhere else.
Right.
And so, my goal is, someday when I'm a busy guy and people are busy, so we haven't figured out how to make that happen yet, but we're working on it.
Well, man, it's fantastic, and my peer support work started with building a drop-in center, and so as you were going through the days and the hours and the groups, I was just like, oh man, it's like I love it, it's awesome. That's where I started. I started doing peer support work in 2008 here in Livingston, and started a drop-in center, and I too had a SMART recovery group. There was a woman here in town. As soon as we opened our doors, we were like you. We only were open a couple hours, and she came to me right away and she said, "Hey, do you know about this SMART program? And at first I was like, no, I'm like, I never heard of it. And then the more we started talking, I said, it sounds an awful lot like rational recovery. And she said, oh yeah. She said, yeah, it is. It's like an offshoot of rational recovery. And I had gone to rational recovery early in my own recovery journey.
Yeah.
And so I was very familiar with it, and I said, yeah, come in. And, I want to do SMART in there, because the same thing you said, right? People come to you and they say, I want something that's non-12 step, right?
Yeah.
I think SMART is a good alternative to that, and I like that SMART uses the CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, which often ties back into a person's individual counseling they might be going to. I know it did for me when I started out, so it was nice. I could go to therapy and get CBT, and then I could go to a support group in the evening, and they were talking the same language. You find that?
Yeah, for sure. In my own recovery, I used a lot of CBT stuff, especially early on. I had a whole lot of thinking errors and irrational belief systems that I had to work out and change, and it really made a difference in my life. And the 12-step programs aren't the platform to come and share that information with people. So
right,
needed a different platform.
Yeah. So tell me about the early recovery skills group. That's awesome. That's great.
Well, with Drug Court, we're using. Oh, I don't know if you mentioned. Probably mentioned in a different conversation with you.
Yeah.
I'm working as an addiction counselor intern with the Drug Court here. And in Drug Court, we're using the matrix model, and one of the groups in the matrix model is early recovery skills. And so because I'm running these groups, I just transferred that one over to this peer drop-in center, because it's one group where people from the Drug Court can come interact with other people in the recovery community. And so we have some people in that early recovery skills group that have some good recovery time, and can come in and share, what they did and the problems they ran into in recovery, and, share this with the people that are brand new in recovery. And so we got a pretty mixed bag in that group of people that have been doing this a little while, and people brand new, and people in between. So that's kind of how that evolved.
That's great. And you said something right there at the beginning that I didn't say. The Never Alone Recovery Hall is a peer drop-in center,
Yes.
right? It's not a treatment
Yep.
program. It's a peer drop-in center. We need to make that clear to people, and that's awesome. And so that's a great segue kind of into I wanted to talk about recovery and how did you get here? How did you get here? I mean, I remember when you sent me that email and you attached the flyer to it, and I opened it up and I went, "Oh man, this is awesome!" And I looked at it and I was like, "This is so cool!" And you know, how did you get to that place? How did you get to in your own life's journey? Um, did you ever think, Don, one day you'd be running a recovery hall, a peer run recovery hall?
Not until the last couple of years. All right, so let me tell you the journey. Right, it got sparked by going down and doing your training down there. Lori Pope, who is part of the peer recovery movement down in Missoula,
Yeah.
told me about your training. It was coming to Missoula, and that a grant had paid for it, and I was like, cool, it sounds right up my alley. And that was a couple of years ago. And I went down there and I did that training, and it sparked a passion in me. I was like, yes, this is exactly what we need up here on the reservation, because we have hardly anything recovery-wise going on up here on the reservation, especially at that point. The only thing happening that people could go to was AA. And so, that really sparked my interest. And I was going to school for addiction counseling and social work anyway for the last couple of years. And I started writing papers and doing research and stuff. William White papers are fantastic. I've used them in a lot of the stuff I've done. So we have an organization up here, an agency called Sunburst. And Sunburst has the Village up in Kalispell, which is a peer drop-in center, but it's attached to an agency. And they were talking about maybe opening one down here. And so I went to the owner. I knew the owner. I said, hey, if you are going to do this, let me go up and shadow Joss up there and let figure out how, watch how he's doing it. Let me run this place down here.
Yeah.
So this is what I, am into. I love this idea. And she said, yeah, absolutely. And they hired me on, and they hired me on into the capacity of a case manager, which I found out that I definitely don't want to do that for a living.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Right, that's a whole nother deal. But anyway, it turns out they didn't get grant money, so they didn't do that. So I left, and I left on good terms. And went into the drug court thing because I needed to fill my LAC hours. But so there's been this fire in me to do something like this for a long time. And finally, our local NA group, which we started a couple of local NA groups in the last couple of years, needed a new place to meet. And so I was like, man, if I could just get a building for all of this stuff that I'm thinking, then we can, start a drop-in center. So I put together a plan, backed it up with some research, and I just went out into the community. We have a bunch of empty storefronts in Ronan. I just went out into the community and started asking whether, I had this plan in hand. This is what I want to do. And the second person that I talked to was like, yeah, let's do it.
Wow.
And so she gave me the building for really cheap rent. Then I went around to the community and asked for chairs and asked for tables and got a refrigerator and microwave and everything we needed. And the community donated it all. The community just stepped up and said,
wow,
yeah, we need this in our community. And it was beautiful. I was like, yeah, this is what community action looks like, and help our community. And so it all came together, and we kind of just are learning as we go, and kind of went from there.
That's Don, man. That's it. It's incredible, really. I mean, it really is, because you said it right at the end. Community action, right, is recognizing, hey, my community needs this, and I can make this happen. I can put forth some effort, and I can get some other partners, and they can help this happen. And boom, like you're doing it. This person in recovery going out and making a difference. I love it. I love it. I mean, that's what we're all about. Montana's Peer Network, that's really what we're all about, is we hope we inspire people just like this to go do these things. Because you know best in your community what it needs.
Yeah.
Not me in Livingston. I don't know. You know, though, right?
Yeah, and that's one thing that's been really important in our groups, too, is, I sat down with a bunch of us, and I said, I don't want this to be a Don thing.
Right.
I want this to be an us thing, an our community thing, and let it grow organically into what it wants to become.
That's great.
And people really responded to that, and
yes.
They came up with all the ideas that they came up with of what do we want to do with this place.
Right. When you
it helped them to commit to the place.
Yes, that exactly what I was just going to say. What I found when I started the Drop-In Center, I did the same thing. So it was like, I'm not going to make the rules. I'm not going to decide what's in here. I'm going to pick a couple things, and we're going to get it going. But then the people who come in are going to decide.
Yeah.
And for the entire time, I ran that place for 3 years before starting Montana's Peer Network, and that was how it ran. I mean, we didn't have to sit down and make a bunch of rule manuals and decide this and that. And no, it's like if you're coming in, you decide what the program's going to look like because you live in this community. What do you need? What are your needs? I love the idea of drop-in centers. I really do, because you can help such a broad spectrum of people, right? I'm sure you're seeing this in your program, different people coming in with all kinds of different issues.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I mean, it really is. I think our system, this is one of the frustrations that I have with our system, is that it's so segregated. It's like, what's wrong with you? Oh, this is what's wrong with you? Okay, we're going to put you over here. Oh, next person, this is what's wrong with you? Well, we're going to put you over there. And we don't allow people to make choices, have a voice, and we don't allow people to come together. Even though they have different challenges, people can come together and they can find commonality. And the commonality for people like you and me, it's recovery, right?
Yeah.
And this experience that can happen in a drop-in center, I mean, I saw it. It's just time and time again, people coming in and they're scared and they're alone, and they found a family in this drop-in center. And it's
that's what I was just going to say. It's a bigger concept than recovery. It's reconnection. It's community.
Yeah. It absolutely is.
When these guys come in and see that, the community stepped up and said, here, man, have this building, here, have these tables, have these chairs, how can we support you? The outside community, when people in recovery see that we're not ostracized, that people believe in us, that people are willing to step up and help us do this thing.
Yeah.
That's big. That's bigger than just us, 5 or 6 of us meeting in a little dark alley somewhere and talking.
Right. Because that's how I got into recovery, was going to meetings, 12-step meetings, and it was in a dark alley in the back of the building, in the basement, right? And it was like, I don't know, it was the place where I was told not to go as a kid. I grew up in Chicago, in a big city. Grandparents said, don't go down the alleys, don't walk in the back of the buildings, it's dangerous for you, right? And then here I am, as a young man, this is where I'm going for help. I'm going down this dark alley, and I'm going, and it was scary. It was really scary, and it's like bringing this out of the shadows, getting the community involved, letting people have choice. I love it. I mean, this is really, I think it makes a huge difference.
I do too, and I think, we're right on Main Street, and I got, big poster of Together We Heal with the mountains and the Never Alone Recovery Hall. And then next to that, I got a big poster of the Montana Peer Network and the Voices of Recovery, or Faces and Voices of Recovery poster. And,
nice.
I am an ally. This is a safe zone, things like that. And there's been a whole lot of people. It's where, we got bars on all sides of us, and
Yeah.
people walk down Main Street. And so there's been a whole lot of times that I've been in that building and there's been somebody at that window just reading that stuff.
Yes.
And I've been able to open the door and say, hey, you want to come in and have a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Talk about what we do here.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing. Our office is the same way. We are one storefront off of Main Street. There's a sandwich shop next door. And in our window, we have the same thing. We got these posters and we rotate them. And people stop and they read them. And we started putting statistics on there, about people in recovery. And we switch it up. It's mental health, it's addiction, it's substance use, it's trauma, it's all kinds of stuff. And people stop and read them. And
I'm going to start doing that rotation thing. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's what we did. We just started rotating them. And, man, they stop and they read them. And like you said, people come in, they go, oh, what do you do here? And it's a chance of dialogue and hand them even more literature. It's really amazing. It really is, being on Main Street and putting it right out front and center. Seen a huge difference. Previously, we didn't have an office where we could do that. And making that change a few years ago, it's like, wow, people really do. I just had a neighbor, she's across the way, she's an artist, has an art gallery, and she's moving a couple blocks away, and she came in, and she said, hey, I want to let you know I'm moving, and she said, keep up the good work. She said, you're a great neighbor.
Yeah.
And I was like, that feels so good, right? Like, it's like, yeah, that feels so good. Like, people recognize, like, we're here, we're part of the community, we're doing something good, so...
Yeah, people have dropped off, and they wait for people to be in the room, and we see them. We know where they're coming from, but they'll come and drop off a can of coffee at the door, and then walk away. And say with a little donation note on it, and things like that.
Yeah,
and people in the meeting see this.
Right.
Hey man, people are supporting us in here.
Right. They care. Yeah. So,
another thing that I wanted to mention that we didn't talk about before we started recording was I'm doing my capstone for the social work program. I'm a senior in the social work program up here. Mm-hmm. My capstone is on peer support, and so I'm doing a research project. And research on rural peer support drop-in centers is really rare.
Yes,
there's not a lot of it out there.
Yeah.
So I'm doing this research project, which is really kind of groundbreaking research, and it's just exploratory research, And so I've announced it to everybody that comes in, hey, I'm going to be keeping just tracking numbers and things like that of how many people show up, and if you're interested in doing an interview and doing a survey, then come see me. Sometime.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of people that want to do interviews with me, and the way I've set it up is what was this community like before this place opened?
Yes.
So, what role does this place fill in your life?
Right.
How can we make this place better? What do you want to see in this place?
Yeah.
That kind of information. And then put it out there in the research world for, other people in rural areas to pick it up and go, well, hey, this is how they did it over there in Ronan.
That's right. Don, that's fantastic, man. That's fantastic because one of the other things that we really promote is data collection in peer support programs. Is that
it's important. I've looked all over the internet for research. Yeah. To back up what I'm doing, and I find tons of research for city areas,
yes,
urban areas,
not
a lot. I mean, really rare to find just starting research on actual peer drop-in centers, peer support
in rural areas. Yes,
in
rural areas, it's so rare. The the program that we ran in Bozeman for 4 years, the recovery coaching, that was outreach where we didn't have a drop-in center, right? But we're just going out, getting referrals from law enforcement, providing support to anybody on the streets. Anybody. Did not matter. No cost. It's all paid for through contracts. So I wrote a white paper on that after the first 18 months because I felt like that was enough time to pull the data, put it together, wrote this white paper. I put it out on our website, and SAMHSA got interested in it. they called me, had some conversations. I did a presentation, a national webinar. I was part of that. Peer supporters working in community-based settings. And just 3 months ago, I'm on a networking call with other recovery organizations. There's a recovery organization out of Washington, and the guy says to me, he says, Jim, he says, I know you and I don't really know each other. Like, I only know the name of his organization. Him and I don't really know each other. But he goes, I need to tell you, your white paper, I found it a couple years ago, and I loved the idea. And we're in Washington. We're in a rural part of Washington. We took your program. We went and got funding. And that program is now running in Washington. And he said,
Nice.
I want you to know. Yeah. And so when you were talking about this, doing this research in Ronan, that's exactly what came into my mind, because you never know down the road when somebody in rural Texas, right, goes online and finds your paper and goes, wow, if they could do that in Ronan, Montana, we can do it down here in rural Texas, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. And with peer organizations, not being afraid of sharing that. Like many companies, businesses, they come on something really cool and then they don't want to share it with anybody. And I love that we're willing to do that as people in recovery. Like, it's like, I want to put that out there. I want to hopefully help somebody. And man, it's like, it's amazing when that happens, when it works out that way and somebody actually tells you, hey, we did use your paper and wow, it's running. It feels so good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and we're really solution oriented.
Yes.
I as somebody working in the addiction field, are you still there?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay, got quiet. As somebody working in the addiction services field with the drug court aspect, not the drop-in center aspect, I see a whole lot of treatment out there and not a whole lot of success rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have a whole lot of evidence-based stuff that we're supposed to be doing, and not a lot of people are responding to it. It's pretty dismal rates, actually. And so with this peer support stuff, I see successes in this stuff.
Yes.
I see it changing people's lives.
Yes.
And so to me, it's like, why am I gonna keep focusing on this other area that's not producing these kind of results?
Yeah.
When I can, think more radical, I guess.
Right.
And step outside of the box and spread the love with some stuff that is working.
Yes. Exactly. And that's what it is. That's the way I frame it in my own mind. It's stepping outside the box, right? That's what it is. It's like, we know what the system looks like. We have a general idea of how it operates. We see low success rates. Let's do something different.
Yeah.
Let's just try it. Let's try something different. And, oh, wow, lo and behold, it works. It's like, it works. And in most cases, these things can be done for a whole lot less money. When we talk about budgets and how much money we spend in behavioral health, we spend a ton of money for low results, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I pay 100 and, like I said, the community is helping me. So I pay really low rent. I pay $150 a month, or excuse me, $150 a quarter. So I pay $50 a month in rent.
Wow.
So
wow.
That really helps us out,
Yes.
But we're paying through, pass the hat donation.
Yes.
And so if people in other communities can get the community to help out and supply a place, this is costing me nothing.
Yeah.
I buy sodas for the refrigerator and coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the extent of what this costs.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost anything to do this.
Right.
It costs energy and time and love.
Exactly. And how many empty storefronts are there across Montana?
Yeah.
Rural Montana. Yeah. There's a lot, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot. Yeah. I hope our listeners, people who are listening, are getting fired up, because Don is telling you the way you can do it in your community. our members out there, you're listening, you're a person in recovery, you want to make a difference in your community, Don and myself are proof you can do it. You got to put the time, the energy, and the love into it, right?
And in the beginning, let me say this so people don't get frustrated. In the beginning, plan on sitting there by yourself for a whole bunch of nights.
Yeah.
But because, it takes time to get word out. It takes time for people to see that you're consistent, that you're going to be there every night. I sat there alone for myself a whole bunch of nights.
Yeah.
I had a couple of other people that would help me, and they would sit there if I wasn't there.
Yeah.
They were committed to having my back on this. And today I'm never sitting there alone.
Right.
These days. There's always, on the slowest night that we have, there's 4 people there.
Yeah.
And that's a good recovery group right there. On the biggest night we have, there's 30 people there.
Right.
So usually it's between 7 and 9 people, but that's the perfect size group, between 7 and 9 people.
Right. And you only need 2 people to do peer support.
Absolutely.
I mean, even if only you and one other person, right? Because I remember those nights. I remember showing up and there was nobody there, and there was nobody coming in. And it gets discouraging, and I counted the heads, and there were 22 people in that room. And I went, wow, you did it. You filled up the room. Because there are a lot of empty nights, a lot of nights where nobody shows up, because, the consistency being there, you've got to do that, because people aren't sure in the beginning. But, man, once it gets going, I know my experience was once it got going, it just took on a life of its own. And it was great.
And word of mouth is huge. I've gone out and talked to all the agencies in my area. I've talked to probation. I get people sent from probation all the time. And I just went in there during a probation staffing, and I pitched it to them. I said, look, man, this is what I'm doing over here. This can change lives. Send me your people.
Yeah.
And they do. And the people end up becoming, not all of them, but some of them becoming vital parts of the group.
Right.
They really like it because that's their place.
That's fantastic. That's awesome. Don, you are doing just really amazing work. You are just doing amazing work. And I'm looking at the time, and I'm seeing we need to start wrapping up. But before we go, one more time, give us the name, the location, where you're at.
Okay, it's the Never Alone Recovery Hall, and it's at 309B Main Street in Ronan, Montana, right across the street from the phone company.
7 days a week, you can come in.
7 days a week, basically from 6 to 8 every night.
Go see Don, because I'm telling you, this is amazing. This is really amazing. I mean, Ronan's not a big community, and you're making a huge difference. It's incredible, and I'm guessing it won't be long before there's offshoots from what you're doing there.
I hope so. I hope we outgrow the place we're in.
There you go. Keep going.
I want to see, what they did with Torch over there in Lewistown, where they're working with the youth.
Right.
I pitched it out there to people like, I don't have time and energy to do this right now.
Right.
But you guys are interested in this. Go become a chapter of this Young People in Recovery.
Yep, exactly. That's the way you do it. Young People in Recovery. You can open a chapter, and you need people who want to put the time and energy in and the love, and they can do it, because you can't do it alone. I learned that when I started Montana's Peer Network.
You can't do everything.
No, you can't. You can't. And what you've already done is amazing. You've changed people's lives, Don. Really, you've made a difference. It's amazing. And please keep up this work, this great work. I want to thank you for coming on the show and just sharing, your experience and what you're doing, because
Thank you for having me on the show. I love talking about this stuff, and I got a passion and desire in me to see this spread all over the state, especially in these hard times we got coming with budget cuts and stuff. It might fall on these drop-in centers to be the main recovery centers around here, the main place people can go.
Very true. That's very, very true. It costs a whole lot less to operate a drop-in center, and I love the no barriers where anybody can come in and get support. So I love it. And Don, man, you're doing outstanding work. I can't say that enough, really, because it's really amazing. Well, thank you, Don, and to our listeners, please tune in again to Recovery Talks, the Spotlight series from Montana's Peer Network, where we talk to people and places and programs around Montana that are making a difference in the recovery community. Thanks again.